The Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, please call the roll.
Senators Bridges, Cook, Coram, Crowder, Danielson, Donovan, Finberg, Fields, Foote, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hanson, Hill,
Excused.
Heisey, Holbert, Lee, Lundeen, Marble, Moreno, Pedersen, Priola, Rankin, Rodriguez, Scott,
Excused.
Smallwood, Sonnenberg, Story, Tate, Todd, Williams, Winter, Woodward, Zinzinger,
Who'd you say?
Okay.
Mr. President.
Here. With 33 present and 0 absent and 2 excused, we have a quorum. Senator Todd, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I would be delighted to. Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For everyone, for you.
Approval of the journal. Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move the reading of the journal of Thursday, March 12th, 2020 be dispensed with and that the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Senate Services.
Correctly printed, Senate Bill 202, 203, and 204, Senate Joint Resolution 20, correctly engrossed, Senate Bill 174, correctly revised, House Bill 1036, 1077, 1133, 1145, and 1229, correctly revised, House Bill 1078, correctly enrolled, Senate Bill 114 and 134.
Committee reports.
March 12, 2020, Committee on Finance. After consideration of the merits, committee recommends the following. House Bill 1127 be referred to Committee of the Whole. The favorable recommendation. March 12, 2020, Committee on Finance. After consideration of the merits, committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 168 be amended as follows. Also amended be referred to Committee on Appropriations. The favorable recommendation. March 12, 2020, Committee on Finance. After consideration of the merits, committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 135 be amended as follows. Also amended be referred to Committee of the Whole. The Committee on Appropriations. For the favorable recommendation. March 13th, 2020, Committee on Legal Services. After consideration of the merits, committee recommends the following. House Bill 1179 be referred to Committee of the Whole. The favorable recommendation.
Third reading of bills, consent calendar. Mr. Carpenter, please read all the titles listed on the third reading of bills, consent calendar.
House Bill 1229 by Representative Montejo and Senators Cook and Bridges concerning authorizing the Peace Officer Standards Training Board to establish a scholarship program for law enforcement agencies with limited resources to assist the agencies with the payment of tuition costs for peace officers and candidates to attend and approve basic law enforcement training academy. House Bill 1036 by Representatives Arndt, McKean, and Senators Woodward and Zinzinger concerning the addition of references to licensed emergency medical service providers and the Emergency Medical Service Providers Peer Health Assistance Program statute to align the statute with legislation enacted in 2019 that authorized certified emergency medical service providers to seek licensures. House Bill 1145 by Representative McKean and Senators Holbert and Garcia concerning the safety consequences of a driver passing an official vehicle displays a warning light. House Bill 1133 by Representatives Kraft, McKean, and Senator Tate concerning land use entitlements affecting real property that has been disconnected from a municipality. House Bill 1077 by Representatives Rich and Valdez D. and Senator Holbert concerning the modification of various provisions regarding the responsibilities of the county treasurer.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the passage of all the bills in the third reading of bills consent calendar, which includes House Bills 1229, 1036, 1145, 1133, and 1077.
Is there any discussion on any of the bills listed? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of all the bills listed on the third reading of bills consent calendar. Are there any no votes on any of the bills on the third reading consent calendar? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, House Bill 1029 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Donovan, Moreno, Janal, Winter, Tate, Crowder, Pedersen, Zenzinger, Story, Todd, Lee, Gonzalez, Hanson, Priola, Woodward, Gardner, Fields, Rankin, Lundin. Please add the President. With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, House Bill 1036 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Winter, Janal, Tate, Story, Crowder, Rankin, Todd, Bridges. With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, House Bill 1145 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Donovan, Crowder, Moreno, Story, Ledeen, Janal, Winter, Sonnenberg, Todd, Marble, Heisey, Bridges, Priola, Cook, Hanson, Woodward, Williams, Gardner, Fields, Rankin, Tate, Marble. Please add the President. With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, House Bill 1133 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Crowder, Smallwood, Priola, with a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, House Bill 1077 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Tate, Rankin, Smallwood,
Donovan, do you have a sponsor? House sponsor.
third reading of bills, final passage. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 174.
Senate Bill 174 by Senator Donovan and Representative Woodrow concerning a change in management responsibility of certain existing display space in the Colorado Convention Center available for the promotion of the state.
Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move on third reading and final passage, Senate Bill 174.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of Senate Bill 174 on third reading and final passage. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, Senate Bill 174 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Moreno, Todd, Hanson, Bridges, Gonzalez, Second reading of bills, general order, second reading of bills. Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general order, second reading of bills. Mr. President.
The good senator from Denver will be fined $2. You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself to the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general order, second reading of bills, and Senator Rodriguez will take the chair.
Mr. Majority Leader. Committee will come to order, and the coat rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read Senate Bill 2138?
Senate Bill 138 by Senator Rodriguez concerning increased consumer protection for homeowners seeking relief for construction defects.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 138 lay over until Monday, March 16th.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 138. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 138 will lay over till Monday. Will the clerk please read House Bill 1158? Please read the title of House Bill 1158.
House Bill 1158 by Representatives Tipper and Senators Winter and Finberg concerning insurance coverage for infertility in connection therewith, making an appropriation.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for the passage of House Bill 1158, and we do have an amendment. And I move the Health and Human Services report as well.
There is an amendment at the desk. Will the we did okay. To the committee report.
In committee, we worked at cost savings and reduced the number of treatments from 4 to 3, and we encourage an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and the report is adopted. There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read the amendment?
Amendment L007, House Bill 158 by Senator Winterman, the Health and Human Services Committee report dated February 27, 2020, page 1, line 2, strike section, substitute section, subject section 23F of this section, page 1 of the committee report, strike line 14, substitute employer officers and employees, F1 within 120 days after the effective
Senator
date.
Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. L007 is to ensure that we are in compliance with the ACA and that the state will not be held liable for any cost. We've been working on this amendment with stakeholders in the Department of Insurance, and we encourage an aye vote.
Is there any discussion on the amendment?
So, this says
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I request a senatorial 5.
We'll move to a senatorial 5. Thank you very much. Thank you. Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I renew my motion to adopt L007.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Amendment L007. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. To the bill.
Did we add a safety clause in that amendment too? Yeah,
it timing?
especially.
Yeah, we can.
We can explain.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and colleagues. So this is an important bill from a health insurance perspective. Depending on who you talk to, this may be one of the most significant bills of the session because the costs for this, in my opinion, are really unknown. So I don't think anybody would argue that building families is something that's important in our state. And it's unfortunate that this bill chooses to focus on one way to build families, but certainly not all ways to build families. If you look at bills that have been ran in other states, they include, for example, stipends for adoption. You won't see that in this bill. So what we're telling the citizens is that it's important to build families if you build it in the way that we drafted the bill. So not in all ways to build families. So that's my first concern. My second concern is, and you've heard me talk about this with almost every mandated benefit bill that we continue to bring year after year after year, is this bill does not cover very many of the folks in our state really at all. Remembering that as a body, we're only able to impact those citizens who are subject to the insurance laws of the state of Colorado, we are immediately carving out a huge swath of our population, right? So this bill, for example, and it's important, colleagues, if I could, because you're going to have the opportunity to talk to your constituents about this, and very much like other bills where there have been press releases and conferences talking about, okay, all Coloradans now have this new benefit, this new, let's say, insulin benefit, or this new colorectal screening benefit. I don't think as a body that we do a very good job in communicating to the public about how truly narrow these bills are and how few citizens actually get to receive any of the benefits that we're out there touting. So my ask, I suppose, to all of you is that if this bill passes, that you communicate it accurately so that people don't feel like they're getting wrong information, miscommunication from our state. Because if you're covered under Medicare, this bill is not going to help you, right? So somebody disabled, for example, who is looking for this benefit. If you're covered under Medicaid, this bill is not going to cover you. If you're covered under the VA system, we heard a lot of testimony in committee about how, and certainly in other stakeholder meetings that I've had, that for our servicemen and women, this is an important benefit. Well, remember, if they're covered under the VA, this benefit doesn't apply to them. If we're talking about TRICARE, right, covers our servicemen and women who are active, this benefit doesn't cover them. So what we're left with is a pretty small chunk of employer-paid coverage or individual coverage. And in our state, if the statistics that I've read are accurate, 60% of those people who are covered under employer-based plans are under self-funded type plans or ERISA plans. And remember, anything we do here in the state isn't going to affect those folks covered under those ERISA plans. So what we're left with, colleagues, is about 1/3 of the population of our state. If the statistics that we got in committee from DOI are accurate, about 1/3 of the folks might actually be subject to this bill. Okay? And a dear friend and colleague of mine who I respect very much loved to tell me in committee about if we're able to help just a few folks, doesn't that make it worth it? Yes, we're not able to help 2/3 of folks, but we are able to help 1/3 of folks. Doesn't that make it worthwhile? The problem, colleagues, is when we get into the costs of this bill, it's not just a matter of helping 1/3 of the folks. It's a matter of having the folks that are going to take advantage of this benefit pass those costs onto the vast, vast majority of our citizens who aren't going to take advantage of the benefit. And I'm sure the bill sponsors could tell you, if you'd like, what percentage of this small slice of Coloradans would actually be eligible for the benefit. But if and when they use it, we're not talking about something like a $200 a month prescription or a $300 annual exam. What we're talking about is tens of thousands of dollars for one treatment. This bill now permits 3 treatments, tens of thousands of dollars that is going to be passed into the system. And what do we hear at this podium month after month, year after year, about the costs of health insurance, about the costs of health care, and what a catastrophe it is if you live in rural Colorado, or if you live in frontier Colorado, or if you live in our resort communities. What do we hear right here at this podium? Is that costs are too high, the Affordable Care Act didn't do enough, and we have to do more as a state to drive down the costs of insurance. That's what we hear here, is that is the issue in our state. We have to do something, somehow, whatever it takes to try to drive down the cost. Yet week after week here, we see bills that, although very good that have very good intentions, what they do is they drive up the costs of insurance. And this bill is particularly dangerous because it drives up costs, in my opinion, into a very, very narrow slice of our community. And let me give you an example why. So, under this bill, if you purchase individual insurance, you would now have, let's say, among all the other things that this bill would cover, one thing would be in vitro fertilization. And I would encourage you to go to the other states who have passed some sort of in vitro fertilization coverage bill and compare what this bill is going to say to those other states, because I would argue that this bill is much more robust in its benefits. So, for example, if you live in Texas, where I believe, and I'd like to go back and reference this, you need to have tried to conceive for several years. Well, in Colorado, we say once you've tried to conceive for 1 year, you're eligible for this benefit. So, if you're a person living in the state of Kansas, or in the state of Texas, or in one of almost every other state that doesn't have coverage for in vitro fertilization, here's what you can do, and I sure hope this video gets played by every infertility clinic in the state so that folks in other states can learn how to do this. What you can do is come to Colorado and establish an address before the end of the year and become a Colorado resident. You go onto our state's exchange and you purchase individual health insurance in what we know is a very small, very volatile market. And you buy that policy. Heck, maybe if you were really smart, you'd quit your job in that other state so that when you apply for the individual insurance in our state, you might even get a subsidy for it, and or cost-sharing reductions so that your deductible would be certainly reduced, perhaps eliminated, that your premiums would be reduced, perhaps eliminated. Because remember, folks, in Colorado, every single year we have open enrollment on our exchange. So leave what you're doing in the other state. This is important. You're trying to have a baby. It's an important thing. I've gone through it personally. Not having a baby, but as a family trying to have a baby. So you're going to quit your job if you're smart, come to Colorado, get your address, buy an individual policy in our state, receive premium subsidies, receive cost sharing reductions, and now you are now available, or eligible, I should say, to have in vitro fertilization, maybe multiple times in 1 year. I know physicians would say that's probably not recommended, so maybe it's one. Okay? You have that procedure, you drive all those costs into a small individual marketplace. Then if you're smart, you'd go back home, right? Things worked, didn't work. Either way, you're out of our pool in Colorado. You're no longer paying premiums into it, or the government's not paying premiums into it any longer. Maybe your IVF didn't take. That would be tragic. So what should you do? Well, you should come back to Colorado and establish an address, get an apartment. To $300 a month, $600 a month. It doesn't matter. You're going to save tens and tens of thousands of dollars. Get on the individual coverage, perhaps get premium subsidies, perhaps get cost sharing reductions again, have another IVF procedure, have 2 more IVF procedures, do it with a different insurance company, because I'll bet you, as sure as I'm sitting here, that insurance company A is not talking to insurance company B to verify how many different procedures you've had. I don't believe there's anything in this bill that talks about a lifetime maximum across all insurance companies, across all states, meaning if you had IVF in West Virginia once, how in the world is Aetna of Colorado going to know that you already tried that 2-3 times and that you're trying it over here? Either way, it's immaterial. You're going to come back to Colorado if you're smart. You're going to have another 1 or 2 procedures here in Colorado if you're smart, receiving premium subsidies, cost sharing reductions. Oh, and don't forget, we've got this great thing in Colorado called the reinsurance bill. Okay, so in case there's complications around that, who's going to pay those costs now? Colleagues? Who pays the costs under our reinsurance bill? If there's something expensive under reinsurance? Taxpayer? Is that what I heard? That's right, the taxpayer. So now you've got folks coming from out of state to take advantage of reinsurance on top of premium subsidies, on top of cost sharing reductions, driving costs into this area that apparently we were so concerned about last year that we had to do something and slap a safety clause on it because premiums were out of control in our state. So we had to do something to try to bring down costs. And now what we're going to do is every single person that comes into our state is going to drive tens of thousands of dollars at a minimum into this very small marketplace so that they can receive this benefit. This is the problem, colleagues, with trying to do a good thing in a very small state. If this is something that the federal government said that they were going to provide across the board in the Affordable Care Act, I don't know that I'd be standing up here right now. Sure, it would make costs more expensive, but we don't have a wall around our state that says that you can't come here, establish residency, take advantage of our benefits, and then move away. We're a mobile society. And we're not talking about something that costs a few $100s. We're talking about something that costs tens of thousands of dollars. Who in their right mind wouldn't do this? So we're taking a very fragile marketplace, we're funneling tons of costs into it, and then what are we going to do? We're going to look back a year or 2 from now, and somebody's going to be standing exactly where I'm standing today, saying the costs of health insurance in the state of Colorado in the individual marketplace are just so high. Government has to do something to step in to lower these costs. And yet we're doing it to ourselves. Colleagues, this is something that needs to be done on a national level, on a federal level, on a front that makes it a fair playing field so that people in our state, those folks who you told me are struggling to pay their health insurance premiums, aren't seeing them driven up to benefit a very, very small number of Coloradans who are making a choice. Okay? Remember, the Affordable Care Act. Remember who built the Affordable Care Act. Remember who designed the Affordable Care Act. Okay? These were not, in my opinion, stupid people. Okay? We had the country's experts come together to say, we need to build a new health insurance plan, and it's going to be comprehensive. We're finally going to get rid of things like no coverage for preventive care, no coverage for maternity, annual maximums, lifetime maximums, all the stuff we hated about health insurance. You had the country's experts come together a decade ago to say, we've got to build the right plan here and make sure that we don't miss anything. Okay, so they built a menu of essential health benefits and said these are the things that are going to be covered. These were primarily Democrats, folks. Okay, this isn't a partisan thing. They're primarily Democrats. They built the perfect plan, allegedly. Guess what benefit was not included when they built the Affordable Care Act, when they built Obamacare? What was not included? In vitro fertilization. Why? Ask yourself the question, why? Why is it that so few states have adopted it since then? And why are the states that have adopted it not built something as robust as what we're doing here in Colorado? I am not doubting that this benefit is going to help some people in the state of Colorado. It absolutely will. And that'll be a great thing for that handful of folks. But when the next person comes and stands where I'm standing today, talking about why are health insurance costs in the state of Colorado continuing to climb, this is going to be a big piece. And there won't be any data out there that will tell us how many people came from West Virginia and from Kansas and from North Dakota to take advantage of this benefit, drive costs into our system, and then move out of the state again. It's a dangerous bill for a fragile marketplace. And my last point, Mr. Chair, is maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point with all of this. And I'm becoming cynical, wanting to know if perhaps maybe the goal with all of this is to purposely break our system, to purposely break the system in the state of Colorado so that the promise of a multi-state, single-payer system will be fulfilled. Because bills like this absolutely move us in that direction. I ask for a no vote on House Bill 1158, and I do have an amendment.
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L006?
Amendment L006, House Bill 1158 by Senator Smallwood. Amendment removes page 3, line 22, strike 12, and substitute 24, page 3, line 25, strike 6, and substitute 12, page 4, line 1, strike 12 month or 6 month, and substitute 24 month or 12 month.
Senator Smallwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment's really simple. I've talked to the bill
Senator,
sponsor
would you
about it already.
Move the amendment?
We heard in committee
Senator.
that. Oh, thank you. I move, Mr. Chair, I move House Bill, or excuse me, I move Amendment L006.
Thank you. Please explain your amendment.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize for that. So we did hear in committee, and I've done some research on my side as well, talking about what would happen for those costs if this is something that we're foolishly going to adopt in, to perhaps, instead of crippling our state with additional costs, just hurt our state with additional costs by stretching out the period of time that one would need in order to be deemed as somebody that would qualify for these benefits, as opposed to trying to conceive for 12 months, instead 24, unless you're over the age of 35, in which case instead of 6 months, it would be 12 months. We did hear in committee that that would greatly reduce the number of procedures that a person might need, that our taxpayers might need to pay for, that our premium payers might need to pay for, that it would result in potentially healthier pregnancies by just waiting a little bit. So I'd ask for an aye vote on Amendment 6.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would encourage a no vote on this amendment. This bill was drafted in collaboration with medical professionals and according to well-established and accepted medical guidelines for the diagnosis of infertility. And I want to remind everyone that this is actually about a medical diagnosis and shouldn't be treated differently than other medical diagnoses we have. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and the Practice Committee of the American Society of Reproductive Medicine both adhere to these guidelines. 1 in 8 people are impacted by infertility. Causes of infertility can include male factors, ovulatory dysfunction, uterine abnormalities, tubal obstruction, perinatal factors, spinal cord injury, medical-induced reasons, or cervical factors. Diagnosis can also include a history and physical examination. Men should undergo evaluation with a semen analysis. Ovulation should be documented at cycle day 21. Evaluation of the uterus and fallopian tubes can be performed. For patients with a history of endometriosis, pelvic inflammation, ectopic pregnancies, evaluation with hysterectomy is recommended. So we want to run this bill based on science. Science is saying that 12 months is the appropriate use. And when we talk about healthy pregnancies, that is one of the reasons we are bringing this bill forward. When we have 3 cycles, women are less likely to be so desperate to implant more embryos that we are actually reducing the number of multiple births, which can be expensive to the system. We are encouraging healthier pregnancies and healthier practices, and I encourage a no vote on this amendment.
Seeing no more discussion, the motion is the adoption of L006. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it, and the amendment is lost. To the bill, Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to respond to some of the previous discussion. First of all, I don't think anyone has said that this is going to impact every single Coloradan, but yes, it is actually my job as a state senator to help those who I can in my state. And we run many bills in this building that we do not defer and wait for action from the federal government. So yes, I am moving forward with this to help those we can. And again, a reminder that 1 in 8 Coloradans are impacted by infertility. And absolutely, is healthcare cost a concern? Yes. But is coverage a concern as well? I hear from my constituents time and time again that they are concerned that healthcare coverage is only for those that can afford it and for the wealthy. And I do not think that being able to start a family should only be a benefit for those who can afford it. And that's what this bill is about. Are we going to say that only those people that can pay for these treatments deserve to start a family? And absolutely, I agree with the good senator from Douglas County. There's other ways to start a family, including adoption. And I would welcome the opportunity to work on a bill that made adoption more affordable. But we should not be telling people that just because you can't afford a treatment for a medical diagnosis that you don't deserve because of your income to start a family. And we do care about cost, and we care about the system, and actually 17 other states have done this. And in fact, one of the longest states has been Massachusetts, which has a more robust program and coverage than this. And last time I checked, there aren't a deluge of people moving to Massachusetts, taking advantage of their public health care system and their systems they're doing and moving there for this treatment. And so to say that all of a sudden all these people are going to move to Colorado in order to take advantage of the system, I think we haven't seen this play out. And in those 17 other states that have passed it, the average increase has been less than $1. So for less than $1, I am willing to go out to Coloradans and say, yes, we actually think for less than $1, we're going to let low-income folks start a family. That's what this bill is about, and I encourage a yes vote.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had the pleasure of hearing this bill in Health and Human Service Committee. I can't recall if there was any opposition, but I do remember the heartfelt stories that were told by women, by men, by families about the struggle and the pain that takes place when you can't conceive. What I remember most about that hearing was the stories in reference to how much it costs to seek these treatments. You heard from the senator from Douglas County some comments about this is going to break the system, that this is a dangerous bill. This bill is about Colorado building families. How is that going to break the insurance system? You heard some conversations about how many people this will help. I can only govern with inside the borders of the state of Colorado. We have U.S. Congress members that are responsible for navigating and passing legislation as it relates to the Affordable Health Care Act. And we have influence through our congressmen. Basically, members, getting back to what this bill does, I'm hearing conversations, it's distracting. Can we have them move their conversation to the side? Thank you. This is important. This is an important piece of legislation. This is an important discussion. This is a discussion about building families for the state of Colorado and for women and families that have difficulty conceiving. What this bill will do, it will require the Department of Regulation, DOI, to regulate health plans to provide coverage for the diagnosis when a treatment for infertility is verified. That's what it does. It also defines what infertility is. It also requires the insurance commissioner to adopt necessary rules to implement this program. It requires that the plan covers medications in the same manner that they do with other prescriptions. But yet, this bill will cover the infertility treatment and medication that is necessary. This is smart legislation. We heard testimony of families and women having to take out tremendous loans, tens and thousands of dollars for these treatments. And this bill will provide relief. We have some families that can't afford it, can't afford these treatments, but yet they have the desire to conceive and to have children. And that's what this bill will do. We need to make sure that we're building a world and a society where we do have young people that can take our places in the world tomorrow. And if you're having difficulty conceiving, this is one bill that will help keep that legacy and that option available for women that are struggling to conceive. So members, I urge your strong support on this House Bill 1158 because I believe it's the right thing to do for building families in the state of Colorado. It's not going to break our system. It's not a dangerous bill. And we had people coming down to us, asking us to support this measure. They shared their stories. I'm convinced, and I'm urging your yes vote on 1158.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I want to acknowledge first some of the things we've heard today. Wanting to have a family, start a family, expand the family, is so important. And I wasn't in the committee. Obviously, I'm not on that committee. But there's a lot of pain in those stories, a lot of hopes, a lot of fears, a lot of expectations, sometimes false expectations, sometimes dashed hopes, but truly a lot of expense. I know a constituent of mine who, upon occasion, takes care of my dog via, I think, rover.com or whatever. She's been taking care of animals at her house for several years now to afford her in vitro fertilization treatments. And first of all, the diagnoses were very expensive, but then to afford IVF. And had this bill been really about making sure our state supervised plans cover all diagnoses, I'd be here in support of that. But I want to direct your attention maybe to a comment made earlier in particular, which was the notion of our job here is solely to help maybe certain constituents. I would submit our job here also is to make sure we don't hurt other constituents. And that also includes the systems in which we operate. The economy, from the big picture, down to healthcare in general, down to health insurance, and even getting more granular, in the individual and small group health insurance markets. Because as the good senator and from Douglas County noted, that this bill only affects a minority of insureds, meaning those health insurance plans are going to become more expensive relative to the other health insurance plans, relative to all the self-insured plans out there, which is the majority of the private market, which are all regulated by the federal government. What does that mean? Why is that important? Well, what companies, what organizations have these ERISA plans? Large entities. Who can self-insure? Large companies, large organizations, the state government. Small businesses can't. You have 1, 2, 5, 8 employees. You're a sole proprietor. Now, once again, we're disadvantaging a certain section of Coloradans. We're disadvantaging entrepreneurs. We're disadvantaging people that pay way more for health insurance right now than their friends and neighbors that have ERISA plans. I would say that's, we're not helping them. We're hurting them. Shouldn't we be mindful about who we're hurting in addition to who we're helping? I remember reading a few years ago about government intervention in markets, and that we have a market, we come in and distort the heck out of it, render it dysfunctional, through government action. Then we blame the market for not working properly. Then we come in and do it for the market. Is that the goal? I don't know if that's the goal. That's a very rational thing. Maybe it's a subconscious goal. I think we're just being unfair, frankly. To many Coloradans who are already paying high premiums, to our small businesses that are struggling in an economic environment of increasing consolidation. We heard earlier this month about auto dealers, franchise laws, manufacturers. We heard earlier this month about liquor stores, distributors, beer, wine, liquor, manufacturers, and all these laws we have that determine the organizational nature of our economy. And yeah, I mean, maybe if we're starting out on creating an economy from day one where one doesn't exist, it calls for a certain prescription. But a lot of those laws are in the way of consolidation, keeping small businesses in place. The forces of consolidation and the effort, the desire to get bigger, create scale, is pretty powerful. And here we are again, making it harder on small businesses to survive, considering how important health insurance is. If you look back for the last 30 years, I remember it's a great graph. If you go back 30 years and look at what's more expensive today than 30 years ago in real dollars. There's only a couple things more expensive than 30 years ago. Everything else in life is cheaper. I remember when I first had my job, first job out of college, I had an MCI phone card and I had to pull off the highway to call long distance from, somewhere in northern Georgia into Tennessee, spent 25 cents a minute. I thought, that was a big bargain, 25 cents a minute for long distance. We didn't have cell phones. My brother-in-law got a 32-inch TV, weighed 280 pounds for $1,200. Now that's what, $210, if even that? Everything's cheaper in life, except for maybe two things. Well, three things. Well, two things primarily. Higher education costs and health insurance, healthcare costs. Those are the two things more expensive in real dollars versus anything else in society today from 30 years ago. Why is that? Well, that's a whole different discussion, but I would suggest that a big part of that discussion includes a little bit of what we're talking about today. Technological advancements in all areas of the economy have made things cheaper than they were 30 years ago, have made our quality of life better than it was 30 years ago. Man, frankly, it's the best time to be a human being in the history of being human. But healthcare is more expensive than it was 30 years ago. Thankfully, not as bad as higher education. Again, different story. But the commonality between both those is like a family feud game. I would say the top answer on the board is government intervention. So members, we know this bill is going to pass. But at some point, we have to think about loading up the small group and individual insurance market with so many costs that it no longer functions. We've fought these battles already over the last 8 years, so what do we do about this market? And maybe it turns out there's no big deal, this bill. But Members, proceed with caution. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I did hear this also in committee, and I supported it. And, you know, it's a really interesting discussion up here today, and it's all accurate. But if you really want to get back to the health care cost, you need to go back to 1986 with President Reagan and EMTALA. At that time, people were actually turned away from emergency room care to fend for themselves, and hospitals would not have to take them. And that's what started this. And I supported what President Reagan did, and this is a result of where we're at. Right or wrong, you know, it's going to continue. I think that the reason I supported this is because of my age. I'm a grandparent. You know, I want to see more babies around. I realize that this will affect a few people, and I think it's reported 1 in 8 or 1 in 6 have fertility problems. I think the technology would increase to make that cheaper as time goes on. And I know that there's individuals that are actually tying this to pro-life, pro-choice, and I don't. I look at this as actually fulfilling some people's obligation, and I mean obligation to reproduce. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I think it will create a little more cost, and I can see that. But when it comes to this particular subject, you know, I would much rather see other issues within healthcare be taken away. But as far as reproduction, you know, I'm going to vote for this one because I think that it's important that those people that, you know, if you hear some of the stories of the people that try and reproduce and cannot, it's, you know, I think that's really what we should be doing, you know, perpetuate the society and the population. But I appreciate everything that's been said up here today, and I think it's just the way you look at it. But you know, I see, you know, I see nothing wrong in trying to help in a smaller amount of the population. So therefore, I think because it is a smaller amount of the population, the cost will not be that great. But we'll see. But anyway, thank you for your time, Mr. Chair.
Senator Woodward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I take this second reading deliberation very seriously. When I walk into committee hearings, when I walk into these second hearings, my mind is always open to other arguments. And to be honest, I walked in today leaning yes because I heard stories from folks who were affected by this. But after hearing and studying and really hearing the testimony of my colleague from Douglas County, I think he gave us a compelling argument of how this is a risky bill that perhaps can do more harm to the citizens of the state than the benefit that it gives to these few. One of the things we haven't talked about, at least here on the floor, is one of the great programs out there today is the foster care system. There are kids who need a home. There are kids who need adoption, who need a home. And, you know, naturally or unnaturally, this is one of the ways that great things can happen, and we can let families happen this way. But the senator from Douglas County has convinced me that this bill does more harm than good. So I think that we need to seriously consider putting more mandates on these insurance companies, because what we're doing is making the problem worse. We're driving up the cost of insurance, driving up the cost of medicine, and that's not what we're here to do.
Senator Piola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I rise in opposition to this bill, and let me tell you, it's not just about the fiscal insurance issue. It's about moral and religious from my perspective. And I'm going to get a little personal. My wife and I have been trying for 20 years straight to have children. 20 years. We have 4. 4 children. Every day we see them, we think of how blessed we are. And that's why when a child comes home from the hospital, the family, the relatives, the friends get around and say, "What a blessing," because children are a blessing from God.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I join my colleagues in asking for a no vote. Similar to the good senator from Adams County, my wife and I, we were about 10 years into marriage before our first came along, and we definitely tried, and we were on the verge of looking at some very expensive options. So I understand the frustration. I understand the challenge. But my colleague from Douglas County said it better than I ever could. This is not about caring. It's not about fairness. This has to be about math and economics. This fits into a category of legislation that I described as please stop breaking what you can't fix. What we're doing, because some, probably enough to pass the bill, will care enough, is we will continue to break our health insurance system by putting yet another mandate on the health insurance companies. As the good senator from Douglas County described, that will inevitably, it will increase the cost of insurance. And he's right. How many other bills have we debated in our time in the legislature where it's been noted that health insurance, health coverage, health care costs too much? Why? Well, because we keep adding more government, adding more mandates, more requirements, more restrictions. And this one is exceptional. It will be so exceptionally expensive. I care. I've been in this situation myself. I understand and ask for a no vote. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1158. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1217?
House Bill 1217 by Representatives Graham McKean and Senator Moreno concerning continuation of marijuana financial services cooperatives in connection with implementing recommendations contained in the 2019 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1217. There are no committee reports. Colleagues, this is merely a sunset recommendation. It will strike the language on marijuana financial services cooperatives from statute. This is an area that never got off the ground. Encourage your aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of House Bill 1217. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The bill is adopted. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion before the committee is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Madam President, your committee of the whole begs leave report is had on consideration of the following task bills, being the second read, makes following recommendations to on House Bill 1158 is amended House Bill 1217 passed second read revised and placed counter for third reading and final passage Senate Bill 138 laid over until 3/16/20 retaining its place in the calendar.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? Oh, Senator Rodriguez. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to have you do the report.
Thank you, Madam
Senator
President. I
Rodriguez.
move for the adoption of the report.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. And are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, and 2 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Okay. Oop. House Bill 20-1158 as amended. House Bill 20-1217 passed the second reading and ordered, revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 20-138 laid over until 3/16/2020 and retaining its place on the calendar. Consideration of memorials. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Memorial 1?
Senate Memorial 1 by Senators Bridges and Scott, memorializing Congress to repeal the federal law establishing the annual advancement of time known as daylight saving time and leave the United States on standard time year-round.
Senator Finberg.
Thank you, Madam President. I move I move Senate Memorial 1 lay over until March 16th. Still tired from that hour we lost.
The motion to lay over Senate Bill 1 till Memorial 1 till Monday, March 16th. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Memorial 1 will lay over until Monday, March 16th. Consideration of House amendments to Senate bills. Senator Hansen. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 167?
Senate Bill 167 by Senators Hansen and Priol and Representative Becker concerning increasing consumer access to electric motor vehicles by allowing manufacturers to sell their own electric motor vehicles directly to consumers.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Colleagues, I move to concur with House amendments on Senate Bill 167.
Is there any discussion? Senator Priola.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Members, yes, we need to concur. What the House caught is that the section we modified in the Hill Amendment over here inadvertently affected 103 folks who manufacture and don't have dealers along the lines of custom motorcycles, small motorhomes, hitch trailers, so on and so forth. So what the amendment in the House did is it restored the original exception, and then it created an exception G here, which is basically the spirit of the Hill Amendment. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Are there any no votes? With 33 aye votes, 0 no, and 2 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 167.
The motion is the repassage of Senate Bill 167. Are there any no votes? Mr. Minority Leader, Senator Cook, Smallwood, Rankin, Tate, Gardner, Woodward, Sonnenberg, Heisey, Crowder, Quorum, Marble, With 21 aye votes and 12 no votes and 2 excused, Senate Bill 167 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Senators Finberg, Story, announcements. Oh, I don't have that script.
Yes, you have to do Michael.
Oh, not announcements?
Oh, 78. Excuse me. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 78?
Senate Bill 78 by Senator Donovan and Representative Garnett concerning the ability of a person to bring a pet dog onto the premises of a restaurant.
Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam President. I move that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 78.
Is there any discussion? Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is it truly, as I'm looking at the bill, is the only thing the House did is rename all the names in the legislative declaration? And this was important. Why?
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Madam President. And colleagues, I am going to encourage a no vote on concurrence. We did have this discussion in the Senate around whether or not pet names should be in the legislative declaration of this bill. Colleagues, legislative declarations are there for a reason. In the unlikely scenario that this law is challenged in court, the court will look to guidance from the legislature and ask, what did they mean? What did they intend when they passed this bill? And what's going to happen when the court finds just a list of names without context and that they're the names of legislators' pets? Colleagues, the making of law is a serious business. We have serious jobs. And there are times that we name sections of statute after people because they fought for years, maybe their entire lives, to get a piece of law, get a bill made into a law. It's a serious business. And for that reason, I encourage a no vote on concurrence.
Senator Priola.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And members, I agree with the good Senator from Adams County. Making law is serious business. I supported the bill out of committee. I support the policy. There's nothing wrong with the policy, but I oppose the amendment, and I think we need to oppose concurring with the House and send it back and have them strip it off, and then we will repass.
Further discussion. Senator Fields.
Thank you, Madam President. And I agree with the members who have come before me and mentioned that they are not for concurring with the amendments made by the House as relates to identifying the names of pets of some of the elected officials, because it's not all inclusive. I'm quite sure you have a pet. Is your pet name listed? So members, I would say, no. No.
Senator Donovan.
Madam President, I am fine with this discussion today, but I would hope that if you're going to apply this standard to the ledge deck in my bill that wants to show humanity, then you adhere to the same rules of your ledge deck, because I've seen ledge deck that wander and propose concepts and editorialize and have all sorts of stuff that we throw in ledge deck. So if we want to establish a new paradigm of ledge deck meeting the legal standard of review, I am all for that. But if we're going to call out this ledge deck that was an attempt to reflect the humanity of the people that vote on the bill and show that when history reviews bills through the annals of time, that perhaps they can see that we also have lives beyond this building, we can remove it. But then next time you're writing ledge deck or get a request from a special interest to throw something in there, just remember this debate this afternoon. Madam President, I would like to withdraw my motion from concurrence.
That granted. Senator Donovan?
Madam Chair, I move, Madam President, excuse me. I would move that the Senate reject the House amendments to Senate Bill 78 and the Senate adhere to its position.
You have heard Senator Gardner. Further discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. And I appreciate the withdrawal of the first motion and a move to reject House amendments and adhere to the Senate position from the senator from Vail. I don't agree with her that we need to express our humanity in legislative declarations. And have we had a lot of others that were just as bad? Yes, and I objected to those then. And this is a place to draw the line and tell the House we rejected this concept, if you recall, in the Senate. You know, there's a time during the proceedings here every day when the President says message from the House, and over in the House, those of you who served there, there's a time that the Speaker says, calls it up, and the reader has a message from the Senate. Let's send a message from the Senate. The message from the Senate is, get serious.
The motion that the Senate reject the House amendments to Senate Bill 78 and that the Senate adhere to its position. Are there any no votes? With a vote of two. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, say again. Okay. Senator Donovan, Senator Janal, Senator Gonzalez. With a vote of 30 aye votes and 3 no votes and 2 excused, the motion is adopted. Okay. Committee reports. Mr. Carpenter.
March 12th, 2020, Committee on Health and Human Services has had a consideration and had a hearing on the following appointments. Organized appointments to be placed in the consent calendar and confirm it. It was the Colorado Commission on the Aging for terms expiring July 1st, 2023. Jimmy Dwayne Collins of Los Alamos, Colorado, serves as a Republican from the 4th Congressional District. Appointed March 13, 2020, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, Mayor's conducts the following. House Bill 1109 be referred to Committee to hold the favorable recommendation. Recommendation placed on the consent calendar. March 13, 2020, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, Mayor's conducts the following. House Bill 1135 The amendment as follows. Also amended for committee whole of favor recommendation placed on the consent calendar March 13, 2020 committee appropriations after consideration of committee the following. House Bill 1153 be amended as follows. Also amended for committee whole of favor recommendation March 13, 2020 committee appropriations after consideration of committee the following. House Bill 1345 be referred to committee of whole with a favorable recommendation March 13, 2020 committee appropriations after consideration of committee the following. Senate Bill 1 be amended as follows. Also amended for committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation March 13, 2020 committee on appropriations after consideration of committee following. Senate Bill 7 be amended as follows. Also amended for committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation March 13, 2020 committee on appropriations after consideration of committee following. Senate Bill 9 be amended as follows. Also amended be referred to committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation March 13, 2020 committee on appropriations after consideration of committee following. Senate Bill 19 be amended as follows. Also amended be referred to committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation March 13, 2020 committee appropriations after consideration of committee following. Senate Bill 22 be amended as follows. Also amended be referred to committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation March 13, 2020 committee appropriations after consideration of committee following. Senate Bill 29 be amended as follows. Also amended be referred to committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar March 13, 2020 committee appropriations after consideration of committee following. Senate Bill 35 be amended as follows. Also amended be referred to committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar March 13, 2020 committee appropriations after consideration of committee following. Senate Bill 41 be amended as follows. Also amended be referred to committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar March 13, 2020 committee appropriations after consideration of committee following. Senate Bill 107 be amended as follows. Also amended be referred to committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation March 13, 2020 committee appropriations after consideration of committee following. Senate Bill 118 be amended as follows. Also amended be referred to committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar March 13, 2020 committee appropriations after consideration of committee following. Senate Bill 159 be amended as follows. Also amended be referred to committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation March 13, 2020 committee appropriations after consideration of committee following. Senate Bill 55 be amended as follows. Also amended be referred to committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation March 13, 2020 committee appropriations after consideration of committee following. Senate Bill 185 be amended as follows. Also amended be referred to committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation March 13, 2020 committee appropriations after consideration of committee following. Senate Bill 51 be amended as follows. Also amended be referred to committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation March 13, 2020 committee on appropriations after consideration of committee following. Senate Bill 89 be amended as follows. Also amended be referred to committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation.
Message from the House.
The House has passed on third reading transmitted over House statutes. House Bill 1359 amended as printed in the House Journal March 2nd, 2020, and amended on third reading as printed in the House Journal March 13th, 2020.
Message from the Reviser.
We herewith transmit without comment as amended House Bill 1359.
Introduction of bills.
House Bill 1359 by Representatives Garnett and Neville and Senators Finberg and Holbert concerning modifications to party candidate designation requirements to accommodate public health concerns.
State Veterans and Military Affairs. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we are going to pull up a special orders calendar, calendars actually, just because of how it's laid out. We're going to recess here in a moment so that the front desk can get everything figured out and get some calendars distributed, but figured out, explain what is going to be happening on those calendars prior to that recess. We, as you probably noticed, we have Saturday scheduled. We likely will still be coming in on Saturday, but we figured it would make sense to clear as much of that as possible so we're not here all day. So we're going to do a special orders calendar to bring up the bills on the consent calendar for tomorrow, as well as the second reading of bills for tomorrow, and the consent calendar of consideration of governor's appointments for tomorrow, as well as the regular consideration of governor's appointments for tomorrow. What will also be in that calendar, and there are some changes. For instance, House Bill 1301 was requested to come off the consent calendar, so we will be doing that, but it will be on the general orders instead of, it'll be on special orders, not special orders consent calendar, if that makes sense. And then we will also be bringing up the rule review bill, because that one is pretty important and timely, and we want to make sure we can get that done in case there isn't time in the near future to get it done before it has to be passed. So that is the plan. I think that is everything that will be on those calendars, but you'll have them on your desk momentarily. But for now, Mr. President, I move that the Senate stand in recess until
Message from the House.
House has voted to concur in Senate amendments to House Bill 1080, 1095, 1148, 1078, and has repassed the bill so amended. The House has voted not to concur in Senate amendments to House Bill 1029 and requests that a conference committee be appointed. The Speaker will announce House conferees on the first conference committee on House Bill 1029 at a later date. The House has voted not to concur in Senate amendments to House Bill 1155 and requests that a conference committee be appointed. The Speaker has appointed Representatives Valdez A., Chairman Weissman, and Geithner as House conferees on the first conference committee on House Bill 1155. The bill is transmitted herewith.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. One last thing I forgot is on the bills that we are pulling up, if you look at the general order second reading of bills calendar for tomorrow, we will be pulling those up as I said, but we will not include 1270 on that list. So it'll be everything except 1270 on that general order second reading of bills list. Mr. President, therefore, I move the Senate stand in recess for about as long as Larry Crowder needs to smoke a cigarette, or until 10:35 a.m.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will stand in recess. Senate will come back to order. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate take up House Bills 1165, 1039, 1280, 1042, 1300, 1100, and 1178 on special orders consent calendar at the hour of 10:45 a.m.
The motion is that the Senate take up House Bill 1165, House Bill 1039, House Bill 1280, House Bill 1042, House Bill 1300, House Bill 1100, and House Bill 1178 on special orders at the hour of 10:45. This requires a 2/3 majority. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will take up those bills listed on the special order second reading of bills consent calendar at the hour of 10:45. Special order second reading of bills consent calendar. Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of special orders second reading of bills consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of special order second reading of bills consent calendar, and Senator Rodriguez will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. The court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title of all bills on the special order second reading of bills consent calendar?
House Bill 1165 by Representatives Graff, Thorpe, McKean, Sanders, Zinzinger, and Quorum concerning modifications to the interior design exemptions set forth in the laws governing the practice of architecture. House Bill 1039 by Representatives Coleman and Baisley and Sanders, Zinzinger, and Tate concerning a transparent state web portal that allows the public to easily search for information relating to state agency rules at no cost. House Bill 1280 by Representatives Skip and Larson, Sanders, Bridges, and Smallwood concerning authorizing the Department of Higher Education to collect the data necessary to calculate return on investment metrics related to student outcomes. House Bill 1042 by Representatives Valdez, D, McKean, and Sanders, Marino, and Tate concerning modification of the notice requirements for manufacturers of perfluoroalkyl and perfluoroalkyl substances. House Bill 1300 by Representatives Bunteo and Pelton and Sanders, Bridges, and Quorum concerning technical changes to the local school food purchasing program. House Bill 1100 by Representatives Froelich and Senator Crowder concerning pass-through child support payments to families that are eligible for temporary assistance for needy families. House Bill 1178 by Representative Holtorf, Senator Sonnenberg concerning increasing the speed limit on rural state highways where it is safe to do so, and in connection with directing the Department of Transportation to identify these highways.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for the adoption of all the bills on the consent calendar and their associated committee reports, which includes House Bills 1165, 1039, 1280, 1042, 1300, 1100, and 1178, along with the Transportation and Energy Committee report.
Is there any discussion on any of the committee reports on the consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of all the committee reports on the special order second reading of bills consent calendar. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee report are adopted. Is there any discussion on any of the bills on the consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of all bills on the special order second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bills are adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee will beg to lead reports adding service to test bills being second reading. There makes following recommendations are on House Bill 1165, House Bill 1039, House Bill 1280, House Bill 1042, House Bill 1300, House Bill 1100, House Bill 1178 has been passed in order revised. Placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. House Bill 1165, House Bill 1039, House Bill 1280, House Bill 1042, House Bill 1300, House Bill 1100, House Bill 1178, as amended, passed on second reading, ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate take up House Bills 1136, 1275, 1128, 1225, 1301, and 1179 on special orders at the hour of 10:50 a.m.
The motion is that the Senate take up House Bill 1136, House Bill 1275, House Bill 1128, House Bill 1225, House Bill 1301, and House Bill 1179. On special orders at the hour of 10:50. This motion requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. And the Senate will take up those bills listed on special order, second reading of bills, on special orders at the hour of 10:50. Special orders, second reading of bills. Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills. Special orders, second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself to the Committee of the Whole for consideration of special orders, second reading of bills, and Senator Rodriguez will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1136?
House Bill 1136 by Representative Snyder and Senators Hansen and Tate concerning the regulation of investments made by domestic insurance companies.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Senator Tate, if care to join me for 1136. Members, I move House Bill 1136 on second reading. Special orders.
To the bill.
All right. Thank you. Members, 1136 is really a pretty straightforward bill. It updates the nomenclature surrounding what domestic insurance companies can and cannot invest in. It doesn't change any of the risk profile or any of the measures that have been put in place over the years to protect customers. It just simply helps us match up what's in statute with current financial products. Thank you for your consideration of 1136. Senate urges support.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to register my participation in the bill. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 1136. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1275?
House Bill 1275 by Representative Montayo and Senators Heisey and Lee concerning providing a state tuition status at a community college for military families regardless of whether Colorado domicile status is satisfied.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1275 and ask for support for the bill.
Thank you, Senator Lee. That'll be $2 for referring to the president as Madam. Madam Chair. $2. Hey, I'll charge myself the $2 too. I'll match that.
I'll catch him later.
That's fair. Senator Heisey or Senator Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill, well, first I want to offer a Amendment 002. No? Don't do that to us. New rule. So,
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L002?
Amendment L002 to House Bill 1275 by Senator Lee, amending Green's Bill, page
Senator Lee.
thank you, Mr. Chair. The amendment is proposed, and we move Amendment 002 to House Bill 1275.
Is there any discussion?
Well, let me explain the amendment. The amendment basically just makes a clarification of the bill. What this bill does is provide that community colleges can have their rules changed to enable veterans and members of their family to get in-state tuition. What we're trying to do is expand the universe of people who can get in-state tuition. And the bill, the amendment clarifies that a member and a veteran can get the in-state tuition. So we ask for a aye vote on the amendment.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Crowder.
Just had a question for the sponsor. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My curiosity is, why is this just set up for community colleges and not colleges and universities in the state?
Senator Lee.
Because we were asked, with all due respect, by the community colleges to do this. We're responding to an issue with respect to community colleges. I think there are already provisions in state law that allow in-state tuition for veterans and members of veterans' families. I recall running a bill of that nature a couple of years ago. This bill tries to make those same benefits available to the community college community. And the title of this bill would not permit anything beyond community colleges.
Well, if I could.
Senator Crowder.
As I understand what you just said, it's already in place for four-year as well as universities, this particular issue. And what you're doing is expanding this issue to community colleges. Is that correct?
Senator Lee.
Thank you. That's my understanding, and you're asking me to recall something out of my memory from a couple of years ago, but I remember doing that a couple of years ago, and I'm pretty sure it was this same bill for university. We wanted to attract people to get that are here in Colorado to get that tuition.
Senator Crowder.
Can we take a senatorial 5 and somewhat research that?
Senatorial.
The reason I say that, I don't question your memory.
Senator
We
Lee.
can verify they already have that, because I like the House amendment on this bill. Because the House amendment, what it did was basically identify who is the immediate family, and that's what was needed on it. But I think if we have an opportunity to actually move this forward unless it's already there. If it's already there, then there's no problem, no issue, no foul. But if it's not there, this might be an opportunity to include that into a four-year institution. So, and I'm just a request to make sure that we're where we're at.
Senator Lee.
Let's take a senatorial 5.
The Senate will take a senatorial 5. The Senate will resume. Senator Lee. Yeah. Senator Lee, is there any further discussion on Amendment L002?
No further discussion on the amendment.
All right, seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of the Amendment 002. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. To the bill, Senator. Senator Heisey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The genesis of this bill, as you've already heard, came from the community colleges themselves. They actually are one of the bigger recipients of military families, dependents, members, folks that are transferred in and they're either attempting to get an associate's or they're just continuing their education knowing that it's a multi-college approach to them as they move from location to location. And this allows for them to immediately enroll in school at the resident rate and not have to pay out-of-state tuition. So it benefits not just the member, but their entire family. Would urge an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1275. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1128?
House Bill 1128 by Representatives Mateo and Wilson, Senators Zenzinger and Priola, concerning education requirements for educators to increase awareness of special education issues.
Senator Zenzinger.
I move House Bill 1128 and the Education Committee report.
To the committee report, Senator Zenzinger.
We had an amendment that aligned the required hours.
Is there any discussion on the committee report? If there's seeing no discussion, seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the committee report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Priola.
Good bill, vote yes.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1128. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1225?
House Bill 1225 by Representatives Weissman and Cadline, Senators Finberg and Quorum, concerning clarification of the requirement of reasonableness in charges imposed by one cooperative electric association upon another.
Senator Finberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1225 on second reading.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think this is an important bill that we talk about and maybe understand the background from it. And so I have rural electric associations in my district that are basically getting a divorce from Tri-State. And I know there's been a lot of negotiations that have gone on, but this just clarifies that Tri-State cannot use that as a tool to keep the divorce from happening, and that's the access to the transmission lines. So, you know, the way it is right now, it's basically the ball is in Tri-State's court. They can say, yes, we're going to do this, but these are the charges. And as I commented in yesterday to committee, and my co-sponsor was a little uncertain as to the meaning of what my statement was, but I said the situation between Tri-State and these rural electrics that are trying to get the divorce is somewhat like two wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for dinner. So this just gives us the guarantee that it is a fair and equitable divorce. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1225. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Will the clerk please the title to House Bill 1301?
House Bill 1301 by Representative McLaughlin and Senator Sonnenberg concerning electronic attendance in meetings of school district boards of education.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1301.
That is a proper motion. To the bill, Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have an amendment.
There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L001?
Amendment L001, House Bill 1301 by Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Everybody needs to be sitting down. I move L001, and this is an amendment that I have never, ever run before. I am asking us to put a safety clause on this bill.
Is there any discussion, please? Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And what I'm doing here, so you understand what the bill does. We currently already allow electronic participation in school board elections or in school board meetings, but they're not able to be counted as part of a quorum. I mean, in rural Colorado, oftentimes there are members that can't get to school board meetings and want to continue to participate. The reason I'm adding the safety clause is this has come about obviously because of the most recent events. We need, and this truly does qualify under immediate preservation of the public peace, most health, and safety. And so I'm asking to put this on so school boards can continue to do business and do it by electronic means. And I would ask for your support of this senator actually adding a safety clause.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I too would support this amendment. And the bill actually came out of committee. It was the most silent presentation I have sat through for a bill from Senator Sonnenberg or from my good friend from Sterling, and it came through, and we put it on the consent calendar. And then as we continued talking and said, we need to move this more rapidly because of the current circumstances. And so with that, I urge an aye vote on the bill as amended, and again, stand in support with a history being made that a safety clause is being offered by the good senator from Sterling. After 15 years, it's about time.
Senator Holbert, or Minority Leader Holbert. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to ask the amendment sponsor a clarifying question. By adding the safety clause to this bill, we wouldn't be taking away the people's right to petition and remove this law from the books. We'd only be taking away the opportunity to pull a petition and put this bill on hold, which would be contrary to what you're trying to do, because people need this in rural Colorado right now. Is that correct? But they'd still be able to petition to remove the law from the books if they wanted to, because they always have that. Is that correct?
Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm not sure that needs an answer, but that is correct.
Senator Corum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I wholeheartedly support this amendment. But with the importance of it, I would like to know why it wasn't presented in committee.
It was. Oh. We didn't think about it fast enough.
Is there Senator Sonnenberg?
The truth is, because I'm just a little slow. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? The motion is the adoption of L001. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the motion is adoption of Senate Bill 1301. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1179?
House Bill 1179 by Representatives Harrington, Superintendent Senators Gardner and Lee concerning implementation of the Committee on Legal Services recommendations in connection with legislative review of state agencies' rules.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1179. There is no committee report.
To the bill.
Thank you. Members, we heard this bill as a House committee on the Committee on Legal Services a while ago, and then it was heard again this morning as a Senate committee. This is the very important rule review bill that if we do not pass it every year, every rule promulgated in the state of Colorado will expire by its own terms after the adjournment of the General Assembly. And given current circumstances, staff and the Committee on Legal Services felt it wise to go ahead and do this since there is no controversy about the particular rules that are not being extended. My colleague can mention the number and give extensive detail, but will spare us.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well stated by my colleague. As you know, the legislature passes laws. The departments implement those laws through regulation and rules, and all of those rules get reviewed in detail by our staff, and if there are objections to those rules based on them being in excess of the authority of the statutes or not in compliance with the statute, they're brought to the Legal Services Committee, and we accept or reject them. And this bill is the product of the work of the Committee on Legal Services and the staff that has reviewed all of these rules. So as my colleague from El Paso County has stated, if we did not pass this bill, all of those rules would not go into effect. So I urge your affirmative support for this rule review bill.
Is there any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of 1179. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion before the committee is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
That's what we're doing next. You don't need to do anything.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Rodriguez.
The motion for the committee. Oh, did I say this?
You're no longer the chair.
I'm no longer the chair.
You have to move the report, though.
Oh, that's where I was at. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met in a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee will base legal reports that are considered the following tax bills being the second reading thereof and makes the following recommendations. There were on House Bill 1136, House Bill 1275 as amended, House Bill 1128 as amended, House Bill 1225, House Bill 1301 as amended, House Bill 1179 passed on second read, order revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for adoption of the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the committee on the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. House Bill 1136, House Bill 1275 as amended, House Bill 1128 as amended, House Bill 1225, House Bill 1301 as amended, House Bill 1179 passed on second reading, order revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Consideration of special orders, governor's appointments, consent calendar. Will the clerk please read all of the appointments listed on the consent calendar?
Members of the Colorado Banking Board.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate take up consideration of governor's appointments, which include members of the Colorado Banking Board, members of the State Plumbing Board, members of the State Electrical Board, members of the State Board of Parole, and members of the Colorado Commission on Higher Education and Special Orders Governor's Appointments consent calendar at the hour of 11:14 a.m.
The motion is that the Senate take up consideration of special orders, governor's appointments, consent on special orders at the hour of 11:14. This requires a 2/3 majority. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will take up special orders, consideration of special orders, governor's appointment, consent calendar at the hour of 11:14. Will the clerk please read all of the appointments listed on the consent calendar?
Members of the Colorado Banking Board effective July 1st, 2019 for term expiring July 1st, 2023. Taylor Colton McElmore, Denver, Colorado. Service Representative Public appointed. Sarah J. Octolani, Denver, Colorado. Service Representative Public reappointed. Members of the State Plumbing Board for term expiring July 1st, 2023. Kevin Thomas Roy of Littleton, Colorado. Service Representative General Contractors and unaffiliated appointed member of the State Electrical Board for term expiring July 1st, 2022. Christopher Huntington Butler of Highlands Ranch, Colorado. Member of the Public at Large. Appointed members of the State Board of Parole effective July 2019 for term expiring July 30th, 2021. Michelle Marie Gang of Colorado Springs, Colorado. Services and representative appointed effective July 1st, 2019 for term expiring July 30th, 2022. Joe Martin Morales of Parker, Colorado. Service representative law enforcement reappointed. Darlene Ann Alcala, Pueblo, Colorado. Services and representative appointed effective July 8th, 2019 for term expiring July 30th, 2022. Chad Delworth of Lafayette, Colorado. Services and representative as the vice chair appointed. Jason Cook Guidry of Highland Ranch, Colorado. Services and representative appointed. Members of the Colorado Commission on Higher Education for term expiring July 1st, 2023. Charlotte Laura Ashton of Alena of Denver, Colorado, resident of the 1st Congressional District, and Democrat appointed. Eric Jamal Tucker of Colorado Springs, Colorado, resident of the 5th Congressional District, and unaffiliated appointed. Stephen Lawrence Trujillo, Pueblo, Colorado, resident of the 3rd Congressional District, and a Democrat appointed.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the confirmation of all the appointments and the consideration of special orders governor's appointments consent calendar, which includes members of the Colorado Banking Board, members of the State Plumbing Board, members of the State Electrical Board, members of the State Board of Parole, as well as members of the Colorado Commission on Higher Education.
Is there any discussion? The motion is the adoption of the governor's appointments listed on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excuse, all of the appointments on the consent calendar are confirmed. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate take up special orders consideration of governor's appointments, which includes members of the Public Utilities Commission of the State of Colorado, on special orders governor's appointments at the hour of 11:17 a.m.
The motion is that the Senate takes up consideration of special orders, consideration of governor's appointment special orders at the hour of 11:17. This requires a 2/3 majority vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will take up consideration of governor's appointments on special orders at the hour of 11:17. Consideration of special orders, governor's appointments. Will the clerk please read the appointment to the Public Utilities Commission?
Member of the Public Utilities Commission of the State of Colorado, effective immediately for term expiring on January 13, 2024. Megan McKernan Gilman of Edwards, Colorado, a Democrat, and occasioned by the resignation of Susan Louise Perkins of Greenwood Village, appointed.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the confirmation, the appointment of Megan Gilman and to the appointment to the PUC.
Is there any discussion? Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask for a no vote on this confirmation. Not because she's not qualified, she is. I spoke with her in my office the other day, and she has very good qualifications. But the PUC is a very important commission, very powerful, very influential. But if you ask, I bet 98, 99% of Coloradoans, they couldn't tell you what they do. And which is unfortunate because they are so powerful. And we need people in there that represent the entire state. not just one party. And that's what we're going to have on this, is we're going to have a third Democrat, basically, on this commission, leaving 50% of the people without a voice on the PUC. Now, you might say, well, John Gavin, he's a registered independent. Well, not really. In the last couple years, he's written hit pieces on Republicans and has only donated money to Democrats. So if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and looks like a duck, it's a duck. So basically, we have 3 Democrats on this PUC commission. That's very, like I said, very important. And probably 50% of the people have no voice on this commission. So I would ask for a no vote, because the governor is skirting the law. You know, maybe not the exact letter of the law, but he's skirting the intent of the law, because the law says can't have any more than 2 on this commission of one party. So he is denying, like I said, 40–50% of the people here a voice. So I would ask for a no vote on this confirmation.
Further discussion. Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to this appointment and extend, if you will, the consideration of this matter. There's a trend that has been obvious, or wasn't at first obvious, but has become more clear as I've looked into it further. There's a trend of, as the political environment shifts out there, these appointments and the rules around who may be appointed and what the constitution of a particular body is supposed to look like is becoming somewhat nebulous, maybe not as well defined. Heard a different hearing appointment the other day on a specific commission that is required under its rules. The commission shall have at no time more than 6 members of any one major political party. And similarly, this particular individual that was being heard, no objection, quality individual, capable individual, up to the job, but this particular commission already has 6 Democrat members on that commission, and the commission's not allowed to have more than 6. The particular individual who was being considered is unaffiliated today, but until recently was registered as a Democrat. And there's this trend, as I've looked under the covers a little bit, of individuals who have either been registered Democrat or are currently and recently supporting Democrat-affiliated efforts, now finding themselves up for appointment as an unaffiliated member to the body that they, in fact, are being considered for. So it's a nuance. It's certainly not a violation of the letter of the law, but there is something that is worth considering and being attentive to. And so I guess we'll label this as opposition to a certain individual's appointment for the purposes of a public service announcement. We should pay attention. We should watch the nuances and the details of what's happening, not just by letter of the law, not just by the clear description and label attached upon it, but we should be paying attention to what's actually happening underneath. And as I've said so many times from this well, are there unintended consequences associated with the action this body is taking? Perhaps, in this case, there might be. Thank you, Mr. President.
Having no further discussion, the motion before the body is the passage of the confirmation of the appointment to the Public Utilities Commission. Are there any no votes? Mr. Minority Leader. Senators Woodward, Sonnenberg, Heisey, Lundin, Marble, Crowder, Quorum, Cook, Smallwood, Gardner, Rankin, Tate. With 20 ayes, 13 no votes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, the appointment to the PUC is confirmed. Announcements.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, thank you for your time this morning and clearing a bunch of that off the calendar. There is a State Affairs Committee scheduled to hear the County Assembly election bill 1359. We probably will not, it'll be an upon adjournment committee, but it's probably not going to happen immediately upon adjournment because I think there's some conversations that folks want to have about the bill and whatever. So it's the only bill on the calendar. It's the only committee today. We will be coming back to the floor, assuming that that bill comes out of committee, to discuss that bill on second reading. We are scheduled to still come in tomorrow. That is the plan still. We will obviously, when we reconvene, we will provide another update on exactly what is happening. There are a couple of different pieces. So obviously this bill that I'm discussing, but then there's also the conversations around potential interrogatories, et cetera, that you have probably been informed about or read about. So that is something that is in progress. We will provide a more complete update very soon, and definitely when we come back to the floor this afternoon. But if you have questions, let us know, but we will inform you as soon as we know ourselves as things are sort of getting built as we fly the plane. Do you have an announcement?
Announcements. Senator Foote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to expand a little bit on state affairs, we will be meeting in committee room 357 upon adjournment at some point, but no earlier than 11:45. 357.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. For now, I move the Senate recess until 1 p.m. today.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will stand in recess until 1300 hours today.